The Mariners have lost 7 of their last 8, so it is a good thing that we have Seahawks discussions to be had. And we'll just dive into a little bit what's going on with the Mariners, as well as what we're looking at with this Seahawks team, looking at fantasy, looking at this upcoming game against the Packers, and what happened last week against the Chiefs. John, anything to say before we dive in?
No, down Mariners week, but it's baseball. It's up and down, so let's get into it.
Yeah, this is the epitome of a Mariners season. So here is some Coyote Picnic. John, do you want to get the Mariners out of the way first, or do you want to talk Seahawks and how excited we are?
No, let's do Mariners. There's lots of other fun stuff to talk about, so let's have the shitty conversation.
Yeah, let's just do it. Okay, the Mariners, like I said in the opener, have lost 7 of their last 8. They got swept by the Phillies. They lost 2 of 3 to the Mets, and they lost 2 of 3 to the Orioles. After we were so excited from an 8-game win streak and winning 10 of their last 11 prior to that second Orioles game. It's just been rough, man. It's been rough as a Mariners fan. This is like the epitome of like, oh, we were so high on the Mariners. They were like the power rankings had them as like the number 6 team in most of the different power rankings, ESPN, CBS, all that good stuff. And then this happens, and now we're like, man, what is going on here? They're still, lucky for us, only a game and a half back from the Astros. That is kind of crazy to think about. I kind of just thought we dropped like 5 games. I haven't really been following the Houston side of things, but what have your thoughts been over the last little stretch?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit on both sides of the ball. I guess first thing is I don't want to overreact. The Orioles are scorching hot right now. The Astros can attest to that. They also lost 2-3 to the O's. The Mets are a very good team. Them and the Mariners are very comparable in the standings. And 2 of those games were fairly close, and there's some good offensive output there. And then the Phillies are really, really good. The Phillies are one of the best teams in the National League. They should be on every list in terms of a contender to win the World Series. But what Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber are doing just is awesome. And it makes me sad every time that I see Kyle Schwarber just continue to go and dominate in every jersey that he wears. But he hasn't been wearing one that I like for a long time. So that's always tough. But yeah, Phillies are awesome. So I'm trying not to overreact to any of that. In that stretch, we lost 7 games. 5 of those 7 games, we scored 3 or more runs. So, the offense is typically doing its job. We scored 7 in a 12-7 loss to the Phillies and 4 in a 6-4 loss to the Phillies. So the offense is putting up runs. I do think the concern is focused on the pitching staff.
Yeah, and there's been some talk in Mariners Twitter about the mismanagement when it comes to pitching staff. Throwing Taylor Saucedo in a tie game, I believe, was a big point of concern in terms of the Twitter stuff. We saw Saucedo make a post about him getting some threats and stuff like that. If you're a Mariners fan and you're doing that, please don't do that. Like, that's
Saucedo alone.
Pretty unclassy, to be honest. But we love Sauce. He's a Seattle Mariners fan, so like grew up rooting for the M's, all that stuff. We know he's not trying to do anything poorly. He's just had a bad outing. And it wasn't even that bad. But either way, like you're saying, the Phillies are really good. Like, they're a top 5 team. They've been a top 5 team all season. The Mets are comparable to the M's. We lost to them 3-1, 7-3, and we beat them 11-9. Like, it was just a pretty intense set of games in that context. And yeah, the Orioles are kind of scorching hot. So I'm not too concerned. But we had to shout it out because the pitching staff has been performing a little poorly, and sometimes that kind of comes with this point in the season. This is kind of like when bats get hot. We've seen it from Julio so far. It's like, and especially Randy a little while ago. Like, there are times in the season when teams and players can get hot, and just like in general, hitting usually increases in the month of August, like after the All-Star break. It's just kind of what happens. Adjustments get made, things like that. So I'm not surprised. I would like to see the pitching staff improve a little bit in terms of how they are doing, but we're not going to overreact. We're not going to say the Mariners stink. But it is a little concerning that the pitching staff, this has been happening. They just need to make an adjustment. They need to figure out what's going on. Bryce Miller coming back will be huge when that happens. I guess let's jump from that into what happened with Victor Robles, because he will not be coming back for a little bit of an extended period of time because we haven't talked since this happened, but the Victor Robles like getting hit by a pitch and then throwing the bat at the pitcher is just kind of insane. Like, yeah, it was your shoulder that got injured, and yeah, you have some previous history with the guy, but in general, like throwing your bat at a dude is cause for getting a 10-game suspension. I'm sorry, Victor, but like you can't be doing that. He's, everybody's competing at whatever highest level that they can, and that was tough to see. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm sure he's frustrated having to work his way through the minors, coming back from this injury. I think there's also, a thing when, he knows he's an MLB guy and he's playing at these lower divisions. I think there's, some expectations that they're going to roll out the carpet for you a little bit. So I think maybe an over-competitive pitch like that, I could see how that could set him off a little bit. But yeah, there's no excuse for that. So it's fine. 10-game suspension is not ideal in terms of his rehab, but again, it's not like I don't think we're desperate for his bat right now. I don't think that's going to solve the issues that this team is having. So 10 games is a bummer. That's 10. You basically just back up his progress getting back on the roster 10 games. So we're just going to lose 10 games of Robles. But at least he didn't hit the guy with the bat, because then it would have been 20.
Yeah, and he made the apology, and it sounds like it's been a pretty rough summer for Victor, so I'm not going to hold him to that. It's kind of, the one thing is when you're a guy who's played at the MLB level and expects to be back there, you don't want something else to set you back. It's like me with my sprained ankle. I was playing against somebody that I shouldn't have been, sprained the ankle. Now I got to wait a month before I get back out there. It's that kind of thing. I was mad at the guy too.
The sport's gonna miss you. That's what I know.
Yeah, but let's talk a little bit about Bryce Miller. They activated him from the 15-day injured list, and he will be, I guess he did starting on Tuesday against the Phillies. I missed that. A little bit of a rough start, apparently, but that was, Bryce Miller coming back out there is a good sign for this Mariners team. I think Emerson Hancock and Logan Evans, they've been really solid. They might have gotten a little overexposed, have some adjustments to make, but they've really shown that they're like a good starting rotation lengtheners. And I think Logan Evans has really proven himself to be a solid asset when it comes to being that sixth man, maybe even that fifth man if we end up, Luis gets moved or something like that happening. But yeah, just talk me through kind of how you feel about Bryce coming back, that kind of thing.
Yeah, he had a pretty good outing. He made it 5 innings against the Phillies, gave up 4 earned runs, which, against a lineup as cooking as that team. Not a bad outing at all. It was, Matt Brash in the 8th that kind of lost us that game after we managed to crawl back from 1-4. But yeah, it was good to see Bryce, good to see him throw a decent number of pitches. He did not get rattled. They kind of jumped on him in the 3rd, I believe. Yeah, Schwarber got him in the 1st, then they got 2 more in the 3rd, but kept his head on straight and kept throwing some nice fastballs and was able to get 5 solid innings against one of the best teams in baseball. So obviously a first start. We expect some better play as this season goes on, but if you remember what Kirby looked like when he first came back, who knows the heights Bryce will reach if they have a similar level of improvement.
Yeah. All right. We don't want to stay too heavy on the Mariners today because we've got so much Seahawks and stuff to talk about. So let's just jump right into some floaters and flounders, John. I am going to go first. And we've been talking about this Mariners pitching staff. I just want to get this out of the way. We are going to have the first time ever in floaters and flounders, an entire side of the baseball on the floundering side, and that's going to be the Mariners pitching staff. Like we said, we don't want to overreact, but this last week has been a little rough. If you look at the game logs for the last week or the last 8 games, I guess, for the Mariners pitching staff, they've basically been allowing an expected batting average of like 275, 300, and huge max exit velocities, decent barrel percentages. The one game where the Mets had 0 barrels, they still lost because they gave up 3 runs. But either way, it's just like they're giving up a lot of hard contact right now. And like I said, it could be because we're playing good teams and, at opposing ballparks and things like that. But it is not the cream of the Mariners pitching crop when it comes to this last week or so. And we just had to shout that out. Look at the stats if you're really wanting to figure this out. Like the slugging percentage over the last stretch has been pretty insane. People are hitting a lot of bombs off this Mariners team, specifically Kyle Schwarber. Trey Turner had that 5-hit game. Like it's a little tough out there for the M's pitching right now, and we gotta put them on blast for a sec.
Yeah, it has to be, and it's been both sides of the pitching as well. We've had some poor outings from starters, giving up big earned run values early. And we've also had some, blown opportunities down the stretch. That Matt Brash 8th inning is one that jumps to mind, where it's just like, man, we crawled all the way back. Can we just get 3 outs here and move on to our side of the inning? And we just couldn't do it. So, yeah, but it's been both sides and it's been everybody. So it's a good collective drubbing that they deserve. And hopefully they're all listening to this podcast and really take it to heart. But I'm going to piggyback off that if that sounds good. I'm going to get a little more specific with my first flounderer of the day. A lot of flounders today. Hope you guys like whitefish because it's tough out there. I am taking Luis Castillo, who we were singing his praises just last week. We were calling out how solid he's been and how undervalued he's been so far this season, and he's followed that up with 2 of his worst outings of the season. He gave up 6 earned runs to the Mets in a total of 4 innings pitched, and then he only made it 4 again against Philly, giving up 3 earned runs before getting pulled. But yeah, that's really tough. He's had 3 outings in the month of August where he's failed to reach 5 innings. That hadn't happened since his 5th start against Cincinnati. So it's only happened 4 total times this year, and 3 have been in the month. So he has definitely been struggling. I couldn't point out exactly what the issue is other than, a slight loss of control. He's an older arm. We're getting late in the season. One more reason I'd love to get Bryce Miller back is to potentially get Castillo a little more rest. But this has not been our regular Luis we've been seeing.
Yeah, this year, his expected batting average is just up. His expected slugging is up in terms of hitters against him, obviously. His hard hit percentage is up. Like, people are just hitting the ball a little bit harder against Castillo. And, he's 32, he's 6'2", 200 pounds, and just like, he's not like a physically dominant guy in his release angle. He needs to get a lot of movement on these pitches, a lot of RPM, a lot of spin, basically. And so that creates the extra movement. And he's just kind of been running that 4-seam sinker combo for most of the season. Hasn't really figured out the changeup yet. And so with that comes, people have kind of figured, okay, this guy is just going to be a fastball pitcher. It's whether or not he's going to throw a sinker that's going to dive a little bit, or it's going to be a 4-seam that just stays straight. And that can cause issues for a guy who's been in the league for so long. People have seen his pitches. It's like this guy, yeah, it's just a facet of getting older. It's kind of like what we saw from Felix. He's going to have to figure out how to get hitters out at some point here soon. Otherwise, he will not be in the playoff rotation when it comes to Luis. Maybe we amp him up to be a bullpen spot, but at this rate, he's looking like our 4th best pitcher. And that's okay. That's okay. He's an aging pitcher. Whip of 1.27 this season. He's still going to throw, 170, 180 innings this year. I don't doubt that. He's going to be up there, but his ERA is about the same as last year. It's just the underlying numbers are indicative of the fact that he's aging and just not up there in terms of all of his stats.
Totally. Slight decline. There's no way he's fallen off a cliff. He's just had a couple bad outings in a row. And yeah, it's nice that he is undoubtedly our 4th best pitcher right now. There's no way we would take him over Wu, Gilbert, or Kirby. But it's also nice that, hypothetically, there's no reason to think that Bryce Miller couldn't contend with him for that 4th spot. And down the line, maybe even Logan Evans is a guy that can surpass Castillo as his star rises and Castillo's kind of fades. So yeah, I think he's in a great role with this team. The fact that there's noticeable decline as he ages and just towards the end of the season is not a big concern because he will be pitching, the 4th or 5th most important games for this team. So, love the guy, but it's been a rough month.
Yeah, and that's okay. We are going to move directly into Jorge Polanco as a flounderer. Sorry, I was going to say floater, but I was thinking of the last month. Last month, Jorge, in July, hit 256 with a 351 on base and a 537 slugging for an OPS of 888. Everybody was high on Jorge Polanco, including us. We were all loving it. We just, didn't really shout him out because everybody had felt like was hot for the Mariners during that stretch. And over the month of August, in the last recent bit, he has fallen down a little bit back to earth, a little bit back to last year's Jorge Polanco. In the month of August, he's hitting 196 with a 255 on base and a 275 slugging for an OPS of 530. If you didn't hear those, that is a 258 point decrease in OPS between the month of July and August. He's not hitting for power right now. He is not hitting to get on base right now. It's been a little bit of a rough stretch for Jorge, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's one of those like quick adjustments that pitchers have made. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe he needs a little bit of a breather. Maybe that injury might have flared up a little bit. I'm not 100% sure. But either way, Jorge is down in the month of August, and we got to kind of call him out because we're calling out everybody right now, except for Julio. Julio's been great.
Nobody's safe. Certainly not Jorge. Yeah, it's been a tough month. But yeah, he's been so up and down all season. I'm really not that worried. He had a great July, but he had a horrible May and June, and then he had an unconscionably great April. So it's just he's been up and down and up and down. So hopefully he can end this season on an upstretch. But yeah, deserving of where he is for sure. Now I'm going to talk about another guy. He's been a little less up and down. He's been a little more consistent for this team, and I'm a little discouraged. And that is our boy, one of the favorite newcomers, Randy Arozarena, who has been really, really solid this year, especially compared to last year. Home runs are up, his average is up, his on base is up, his walks are up. So he's been better across the board for the Mariners this year. But in the month of August, his batting average is down to 189. He's got a 297 slugging, 574 OPS. So he's just not being nearly as efficient. Just as an example, last month in July, that was pretty indicative of his season as a whole, and he was batting 268 with a 639 slugging, 972 OPS. So his OPS has basically been cut in half along with his slugging in the month of August. You don't love to see it for a guy that was generating a lot of power for us and some really timely hits. Those have evaporated, and it's a big reason that we've left a lot of guys on base in these Mets and Phillies series is because we're doing a good job. JP has been really solid, to be completely honest. Cole Young has been solid, and we're getting through our 8-9 guys and setting up the top of our order for success. But Cal and Randy have not done a very good job of taking advantage of that.
Yeah, I think the big thing is his power numbers has kind of decreased, while his strikeout total has kind of stayed consistent, right? He had 11 home runs in the month of July, 29 strikeouts. He's got 2 home runs in the month of August and 21 strikeouts. So it's like he's kind of just like lost that power. And I don't know where it went. We're not swing evaluators. We're not, evaluating every single tiny thing that Randy Arozarena is doing. But in that sense, it's like, okay, there is something obviously shifted, whether it's teams realizing that he's been overzealous, I guess, in terms of he's just kind of trying to swing at everything with a lot of force, trying to hit home runs, and he was doing that, and he was doing it well. Like, it feels like Randy has kind of recently really cooled off. It seemed like he was really hot starting in August too, but in general, he's just not hitting for as much power. I think he was just kind of getting on base, and his contact quality, I think, has decreased quite a bit in the month of August, and because of that, because of those strikeouts, it's like the guy is maybe a little bit pressing, but I don't think anything too crazy is going to come out. He's a consummate professional. Like we're expecting to see those numbers increase again. I think he's just got to tone it down, and he was a little bit Julio-like this month in terms of the excitability of his swing and when he's swinging and those sliders away. Like I feel like he was always in a count that was detrimental to being a hitter, and hopefully that can get back to normal.
Yeah, a lot of negative counts. That's a great call on the Julio-isms we've been seeing. So glad to see that Julio and Randy have been hanging out. That's great for camaraderie, but it's supposed to go the other way, Randy. You're supposed to make Julio more like you. So, yeah, that's been discouraging, but Julio's been awesome. So maybe they just kind of share one statistical pool, and each one gets to take turns hitting dingers.
I mean, Freaky Friday 2 did just come out. Maybe they just swap bodies. And
Oh, that's funny.
All right. Anything to say before we get off the Mariners? We've already been talking about them for 20 minutes. Like it's bound to happen. But anything else to say before we jump to the Seahawks?
Yeah. One thing to say about the way their season is going to end as we enter the home stretch here in late August and September. Obviously, this has been a very discouraging week for a fan base that was really on cloud 9 coming out of that Tampa Bay series. I want to urge caution. We are coming down a great stretch here. We just played 2 teams back-to-back with either equal or better records than us in the Mets and the Phillies. Going down the stretch of this season, we have 11 more series to play before playoff baseball starts. 8 of those 11 series are against teams with worse or significantly worse records than us. Only 3, and that is Houston, the Dodgers, and San Diego. Those are the only 3 with better records than this Mariners team. And obviously, Houston is a matchup that we like and, games we will want if we want to win this division. So there are only 2 series, I should say, I'm not looking forward to, and that's our 2 Southern California friends.
Those NL West teams, a little scary.
Totally. But other than those 2, we are looking at 8 series where we should be comfortable with the idea of winning 2 or 3. That's going to give us a very, very real chance to close the gap and overtake the Astros. They've also sucked. They've lost 5 of their last 6 as we've gone down, this stretch. So we're still only a game and a half behind. So part of the reason we're not freaking out about what's been a lousy week is that, there's really good things coming down the line, and our biggest competition has also been floundering. We're also holding on to the 3rd wildcard spot very comfortably. We're right there with the Yankees and the Red Sox. I think Yankees are a full game ahead, and they're the 1st wild card. So, division's very much in play. Any wild card is very much in play. I still feel very good about this team.
Yeah. Love those notes. Huge to really consider. Like, as a Mariners fan, we've kind of been blessed with the rate that the Astros have been playing and the lead that we got over that 8-game win streak. So it's okay. It's all okay. We'll get through this as a family. Fantastic Four style. All right.
Breathe deep.
All right. Let's jump to the Seahawks, and I suppose we should talk about last week before we do anything else. Seahawks beat the Chiefs 33-16 in what felt like kind of a smackdown. Like the Seahawks rushing game was just really, really a force to be reckoned with that day. Did anything stick out to you? I feel like it was just a really solid all-around game by them.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a smackdown. The only area where they showed any weakness was in special teams. Kansas City had 2 great returns, one all the way back to the 50, and the other was obviously that Sky Moore touchdown. So They scored almost half their points on special teams. But yeah, it was dominant. The passing game looked nice. Drew Lock was very sharp with his arm and had a couple big runs to go with it. Our boy Jake Bobo, 2 receptions for 2 touchdowns. You love to see that from the guy. And the rushing game looked great. Obviously, a lot of backups like Damian Martinez and George Halani getting minutes, but Charbonnet in his limited time was very, very powerful, averaging 9 yards a carry on the ground. He's a guy we'll talk about a little more later, but I think Charbonnet is really, really good. Kenneth Walker obviously is the starting job, but it's one of those situations as he comes into his 3rd or 4th year with the team. I would not be shocked if he managed to kind of take the helm of that backfield from an aging Kenneth Walker. I just think Charbonnet's got some really good stuff going.
Yeah, especially as a 1-2 punch. I think Charbonnet plus Walker is going to be a really nice just like thing to have as a Seahawks fan, because Kenneth Walker, like there's a little bit of an injury concern there. Obviously he's aging, but he's still good. Like physically he's still solid in terms of like how he runs, and I think the real issue over the last couple of seasons has been the offensive line and the offensive scheme not really playing into the hand of a rusher. And Kenneth Walker's kind of taken the brunt of that force when it comes to, Charbonnet's basically been a blocking running back because every 3rd down it felt like we were 7 yards short and had to pass.
Yeah.
And so Walker was just kind of like chipping away, getting a lot of tackles for loss, that kind of stuff. And I think as a 1-2 punch, they'll be better. I think Kenneth Walker's actually almost underrated right now too. I think our rushing game is just really solid. I do like Charbonnet a lot. But it's really exciting to see that. Another guy I wanted to shout out, Eliza Arroyo, two catches, 19 yards total. And it's just, he's proven to be pretty solid, I think, overall. Like he's not wowing anybody right now numbers wise, but he's been really good. Torrey Horton did not have his biggest game, but I don't think they were really focused on that as this game went along. Let's really talk about this. The Seahawks kept Kansas City to 178 total yards, and we had 268 yards rushing and 209 yards receiving. Like, it was a total offensive smackdown, defensive beatdown. Like, it was crazy. And granted, we're playing against the 2nd and 3rd string Kansas City players because they don't want to injure anybody. But just the Mike McDonald defensive scheme looked very, very good in this game. Yeah,
the statistics are pretty gross. 29 first downs to 9. Almost doubled their time of possession. We more than quadrupled their rushing yards. So yeah, this was a smackdown. It was a dominant performance, and I love to see it. One last guy I wanted to call out because it's maybe on the team's biggest weakness. Gray Zabel looked really, really good on the offensive line, opened up a couple of really big holes for Charbonnet in those first couple of drives for the Seahawks. nice to see some, obviously preseason football, but some improvement on the offensive line. That will be very big to make Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet a little more viable in this offense and protect Darnold a little bit. So that was very encouraging.
Yeah, man. Anything really to say about this game before we jump into a little bit about what's going on with the Packers game, and then we'll jump into one more little Seahawks discussion?
No, I know what the Packers were about to talk about Milroe. Milroe was fine in this game. He didn't get a lot of run. It is pretty clear Drew Lock has been just so solid that I don't think there's any doubt he's locked up the backup position for this year. So even in a situation where Darnold goes down, I would not expect to see much Milroe this year. But in a lot of ways, I think you and I would agree that that's for the best. I want the Jordan Love progression route for a guy like Milroe. Let's not Anthony Richardson him. Let's not put him out there before he's ready. Let's give this guy some time to age and develop and learn some things about the offense before we want to wow ourselves with his arm and his legs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so jumping into the Packers game, Milroe it was just announced, I think today, that he's going to start and play the entire game against the Packers, right? So he's going to take every snap, at least, unless they get up by 30 and they decide, and we'll give you a little break. But in general, this is the Jalen Milroe test run. We're going to see how this guy performs throughout the entire game against different looks against a Packers team that's a pretty good defensive team. Who's every team is getting more and more tight in terms of their numbers, and so that means you're going to see better looks, better players on this Packers team. People are going to be getting warmed up, that kind of stuff. So this is a good test for Milroe, and I'm excited to see that. I do agree with you that Drew Lock has solidified that QB2 spot for the Seahawks, but this is the perfect opportunity for Jalen to either impress or just provide kind of a look at what we could see going forward in terms of how he processes different schemes and going through his targets, things like that, versus a good team. And I'm just excited. I think this is going to be a really fun opportunity for us to, as Seahawks fans, get to look at what the future of this team could be with him and Torrey Horton and Elijah Arroyo. That's a group that I'm excited to see in terms of how this team can perform.
Well said. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, big opportunity to see him perform. Yeah, don't expect too much. I think the fact that we're giving it to him, I think, shows how encouraged Mike McDonald has been over these first two games. He's ready to stop developing and start learning with some of these more unknown assets. So that will be fun to see, but I'm not going to stake too much on it if he tears it up. Yeah,
I agree. Man, I want to talk about it. I was thinking about it while we were prepping for this pod. I'm just going to bring it up and talk to you about it, and you haven't heard about this at all, but the Matthew Stafford thing with the Rams, I feel like everybody was so high on the Rams this season, and Matthew Stafford has just kind of not been available at all just because he's old and injured, and it feels like everything that we kind of said about the Rams is just that they were old and their quarterback play, and I was not as high on Devontae Adams, but I feel like everybody's kind of gotten off the Rams, and people might be jumping onto the Seahawks bandwagon. It's the Seahawks, the 49ers. Nobody's really keen on the Cardinals, even though their defense is going to be pretty solid. This could be a year that we underestimated the Seahawks in terms of the offseason and how they look right now. Is this year 2, I believe, for Mike McDonald?
Correct.
Everything is going to, I think, really mesh really well. And if the Rams are unable to get going in terms of the start of the season and their first place schedule, all that kind of thing, the Seahawks really have an opportunity to pounce and make the playoffs and do all that kind of good stuff that we've seen them do over the last half decade. And I kind of got excited over the last week, and I just want to hear if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I think that's completely and totally fair. There's a lot to be excited about. I just think this division is going to be really good again. I am a believer in the Cardinals, what they can do both offensively and defensively. I think the Niners retooled in an impressive way. Stafford hasn't been very available, but it's also the preseason, so until he misses week 1, I'm not going to be too concerned there. And I do think the Seahawks have one of the best defenses in football, and I think this offense there are a lot of unknowns, but if it all works, they could be very serviceable. So I just think there's a chance that this is the division where every team is good, no team is great. Somebody has to go and take it. So it could be a lot of fun. I'm not feeling like the Seahawks are in a position to necessarily just take it. But depending on how Sam Darnold and this offensive line looks, I think they could be right there in that conversation.
Yeah, for sure. All right. You wanted to do a little bit of a little bit of a discussion on fantasy, and I think it's the perfect time to, because I think I have 2 fantasy drafts coming up in the next 5 days, so I need this as much as you want to talk about this. We're going to talk some Seahawks players and kind of where they rank in fantasy, and we'll talk about whether they're overvalued, undervalued, how we feel about those. So, John, take it away.
Yeah, this is perfect. We're just basing this off ESPN's non-PPR rankings, so keep all that in mind, but I don't think the Seahawks are a team that's particularly PPR affected, so it shouldn't matter too much. I'm just going to start at the quarterback and just kind of work down in the most important positions, and we'll just talk about their value. Sam Darnold is currently ranked as ESPN's number 27 overall quarterback. Do we think that's an under or overvalue? I'll just say for me, this is a guy that was a top 7 quarterback last year. I understand that it's a totally new situation, but 27 feels a little harsh.
Yeah, I think people are undervaluing the weapons that he has. You know, JSN's going to be good. Cooper Kupp's going to be good. Charbonnet is a great pass catching back. Like, I think the weapons in terms of Sam Darnold's fantasy value are pretty nice. And yeah, the Seahawks team is going to be more heavily focused on the run game, but I think that's going to aid in the passing game as well. Like, I think it's going to open up opportunities for him to, you know, do a play action or a bootleg type thing. And I do think it's undervalued. I wouldn't have him, you know, in the top 15, but I think somewhere around that like 20 range. Like, he feels like, is he worse than Bryce Young in terms of fantasy?
Yeah.
Like,
they have him under Bryce Young.
That's kind of crazy.
They have him under Cam Ward. They've got him under a couple of these guys. Like Michael Penix. We both love Michael Penix. Like, we have no idea what that guy's going to be. So I'm not sure I'm totally with ESPN on this one. Kind of tough luck for Darnold.
Yeah, that is to say, I don't know that if you're playing in like a single QB league that you should be really clamoring to get at Darnold.
Yeah.
But a 2 QB league, you could have him as a nice, you know, secondary quarterback, or even a third as the backup for those bye weeks. Like, whatever you got, he's a valuable quarterback to have, but you don't have to hunt him down.
Yeah, I think his place to shine, I totally agree. In one QB, you don't really want him. But in 2 QB, 10-man leagues, if he's your third quarterback, you're in a great spot, because he's a guy that, again, his ceiling is really high. We know that. We suspect his floor could be quite low in this new situation. So don't necessarily count on him every week, but if he's stepping in for a week, I think that's totally fine. And if he's your third guy that happens to be better than your second guy as the season goes on, that's just gravy. So I do think we agree undervalued in that regard. I might put him closer to 20 than 27.
Yep. Agree.
Okay. Moving on. Our top-ranked player total in ESPN is Jackson Smith at number 34 overall. He's the wide receiver 17. What do you think about his placement on that list?
That feels kind of right. I'm not super high on JSN as a wide receiver 1 in that regard, just because like we are in terms of, you know, if you're drafting whatever it is, but where his value comes from was the volume of catches that he was making, and in a non PPR league he doesn't have a ton of value. So I think that there's some value lost there. I think that obviously the scheme change to being more rushing focused is detracting from his value. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be our wide receiver 1. I think he'll have, you know, 8 or 9 touchdowns this season and be really solid. But I don't know that he's going to have a 1,000-yard season or anything like that. Like, I think it'll be a lot more chips with him and probably more touchdowns in terms of the rushing atmosphere or the rushing game for the Seahawks. And in that way, I think his value has decreased a little bit since what we saw last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's sitting behind guys like Terry McLaurin and Mike Evans. He's right in front of Xavier Worthy on Kansas City. So I think that's about right. He's with some of these young receivers like Xavier and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Garrett Wilson, where it's like they're talented, but their situation might be holding them back. And he's behind guys that are a little more proven and in better offenses. So I think that's just about right for him.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving on to our second wide receiver on the list and the only other one ranked in the top 300, that is Cooper Kupp. He's 77th overall. He's the wide receiver 39. And just for a little bit of context here, that puts him directly behind Jacoby Myers and Chris Olave, and right in front of guys like Jordan Addison and Emeka Egbuka. I'll just say for Cooper, I love the guy to death. Guy won me a fantasy championship. He's one of my all-time favorites. I had him as Triple Crown year, and I'll never forget it. But that might even be a little generous for this guy to be ahead of guys like Jordan Addison, who's also a number 2 receiver, but on just, across from Justin Jefferson and a little more proven, and guys like Emeka, who think might be the best wide receiver out of this draft. Maybe we're being a little kind to old Cooper Kupp.
Here I was while you were preparing your statements for Cooper Kupp. I was like, we can't agree on everything. I got to have some spicy takes to make sure we're not agreeing. But yeah, I can't say that I think he's being undervalued in the slightest. Like I think Chris Olave is going to be at least halfway. Like these are guys that are kind of Jordan Addison suspended. Chris Olave usually gets injured. Like I think there's some value or detracted from him in that regard. And I think with that, if Cooper's going to play a full season, and he's very injury prone as well, so maybe there's some thought about that and being in this kind of group of potential injured players. But I do think Ibuka is going to be better than him. I just think he's being overvalued in that regard. Like especially in a non PPR league, like. These are all of the things that have happened to him this season. Like, yeah, we might be we were really high on him coming into the season and after the trade, but it's like you have to be a little realistic when it comes to fantasy value. Yeah. And I think he's not going to be, he might be a wide receiver 3 this season, but he's going to be fringe wide receiver 3 if that.
Yeah, I think we're more high on what he can provide to the offense, which is just a great release valve and a consummate professional to work with Darnold and just like all the intangibles and, a big play third down guy that's always been there. But statistically, what do we expect from him? Just to be clear, the next big group of wide receivers are in the low 90s. Wide receiver 42, starting with him. That's Michael Pittman Jr., Stephon Diggs, Deebo Samuel, Keon Coleman, Jawan Jennings, Khalil Shakir.
I have no problem with him being in that next group. Yeah.
Well, but I think I'd take all those guys over Cooper Kupp this season. I think all of those guys have bigger roles in better offenses. Yeah, but maybe he belongs more down there. The fact that he's pretty close in the wide receivers, but he's a full 20 spots higher on the overall rankings. I'm not sure that's right for our very talented, very old boy.
Yeah, we're in agreement with that regard. I see, kind of the vision if he has a full season where, this offense clicks in a real way and we're, a 10, 11 win team. We're not going to be an 11 win team, but if we're a 9, 10 win team, I could see him having 6, 7 touchdowns this year and being a really solid guy. But I do think we're going to be spreading the love a lot more with guys like Jake Bobo, with guys like, JSN, just Marquez, everybody Marquez, Valdez-Scantling, all these people, Torrey Horton, these are going to be, there's going to be so much offense to be spread around in terms of the passing game. I doubt it's going to be a lot of focus on Cooper Kupp. He's going to be the, play breaks down. He's going to be the Tyler Lockett guy. And yeah, Tyler Lockett has value, but he week to week and consistency wise, he didn't really provide that. He was always a wide receiver 3 guy and felt like he was probably a little bit lower on that end. So I think he's overvalued.
All right, moving on to the running backs. Kenneth Walker is the 38th overall. He's the running back 14. 38th overall. So that puts him right behind Omarion Hampton, the rookie they're very excited about on the Chargers, and James Cook on Buffalo, and right ahead of guys like Chuba Hubbard on Carolina and Alvin Kamara on New Orleans. Now, I know what I think about this. I'm going to let you go first.
I tell you what, to me, he's overvalued there. Chuba Hubbard's good. Chuba Hubbard's good. James Cook is going to score 11 or 12 touchdowns this year. The Bills love James Cook. He just got paid. They're going to feed him the rock. I don't think Kenneth Walker is going to get that kind of load, especially we were talking about earlier, the 1-2 punch of him plus Charbonnet. Charbonnet is going to get half of the load. I really think it's going to be a real 1-2, and they're going to be splitting carries. And I think Kenneth Walker is being overvalued. And yeah, he can catch passes, but again, in a non-PPR league, it's just I don't really see it with him. I think it'll be just split just so evenly with Charbonnet, and I think he's probably in a tier, maybe even 2 tiers below those guys that were near him in terms of where you would put him in terms of fantasy.
Yeah, I completely agree with this. I I like him a lot, but the injury concern, the split on the backfield, the fact he hasn't played in a year, the questions of the offense and how many touchdowns they're going to score, these are all real concerns. And yeah, to be ahead of guys like Chuba, who's a star, Alvin Kamara, who puts up big numbers and is the only guy in that offense. James Conner is kind of a comparable guy in terms of he's going to split time and he's a little bit older. But then, yeah, and guys like Travion Henderson and Breece Hall are behind him. And those are young guys that could be absolute stars. So I put him and James Conner on the same tier. Those other 5 names I listed, I think I'd all take over Kenneth Walker. I think the conditions are too tough for his situation.
I tell you what, I have had 3 of my, I believe, 6 fantasy drafts happen so far. And in all 3 of them, I had no desire to draft Kenneth Walker when he was like the top available guy. Like he's very much overvalued. I think as a Seahawks fan, we know that, maybe not by the general population, but as a Seahawks fan, I think we could all know that Kenneth Walker is being overvalued, especially for fantasy right now.
Yeah, yep, completely agreed. Okay, moving on to our boy Zach Charbonnet. He's the running back 45, 132nd overall. This is kind of an interesting one. He's certainly in that top tier of backups. He's with guys like, he's right behind Rachaad White and Trey Benson on Arizona. And he's directly in front of Jaden Blue on Dallas and Tyler Algier in Atlanta. So they certainly understand Charbonnet in terms of a very talented backup. I'm going to say I think he's a little bit undervalued here because unlike those guys, those guys are all guys that are behind a RB1 who's going to get the lion's share of the carries unless they get hurt. Or Rachaad White is like he's in there in passing situations, but that's it. Charbonnet is the only guy where I think putting him like 6 or 7 spots behind Kenneth Walker is very appropriate. Like, again, I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of this season he's getting 60% of the carries and Kenneth is getting 40. So I think there's a value gap there. Obviously, this is dynasty talk or 12-man, 3 running back talk, but Charbonnet I think is a great bench stash in case Kenneth gets hurt, which is very possible, or in case he just passes up Kenneth in the depth chart, which I also think is very possible.
Yeah. I think there's. You said, where did you say they were at? I think you said Charbonnet was 42 in terms of the running backs, and Walker was like 14 or something like that.
Yeah, Walker's 14th in the running back, Charbonnet's 45th, and there's basically 100 spots in between them overall.
Yeah, I would really if I was looking at those two, I would push them maybe like 12 spots closer on each end, and just put Charbonnet at like the 33 and Walker at the 22, or I guess what is that? 24 or whatever it is. Like, I feel like they're that far apart in terms of fantasy value, like especially like you're saying. I think he's going to get the lion's share of the load just because he feels like he's been so dominant in terms of finishing in the end zone or in the red zone, and that kind of thing. Like, I think he'll take over a lot of those drives in terms of how the Seahawks finish those possessions. And I'm really excited about him. I think I got him in our league, or at least I was looking at his name and I really wanted to get him in our league. And I was like, man, this is a great like RB3, great guy to stash. Could have a big week, especially later in the season. I think he'll be just better and better as the year goes along. Like, stash that guy and keep him around. Yeah,
completely agreed. Okay, last skill position guy we have on this is Elijah Arroyo. He's the tight end 27, coming in at 258th overall. He's technically behind A.J. Barner on the Seahawks tight end depth chart, but he's gotten much more preseason action, and I think we expect him to maybe be in passing situations, and maybe Barner is more of a blocking tight end, but that is the situation. Let's see, 258 overall. That puts him ahead of Dalton Schultz on Houston and Mike Gesicki on Cincinnati, and it puts him behind guys. It's just a running back stretch there for a while. Who's the first tight end? He's behind Pat Freiermuth and Isaiah Likely, but they are a full 80 spots in the rankings. There's a huge tight end drop. So they're basically saying, Isaiah Likely's the last upside tight end, and then Arroyo's the best of what's left in the tank. What do you think about that placement for Elijah Arroyo?
I tell you what, Elijah Arroyo is the guy to stash on your dynasty leagues. Like he is not a guy who you're going to expect to get a lot of touchdowns. He's probably going to have 1 or 2 catches a game, like maybe. And I don't think it's going to be for anything big. I think they're probably going to rely heavily on tight ends as blockers, and maybe every once in a while they'll have one pop up the middle for a screen or something like that. But in general, I don't think he's going to have a lot of fantasy value. I feel like that's appropriate. Like he should not be a top tier fantasy ad for a team that's any real team. Like I think you're going to draft maybe 2 tight ends in a 12-man league, and I don't think he really fits into that like second tight end spot if you're really looking for value out of that. So yeah, I think it's right.
He's deep enough. I don't think there's too much to say. There's a big gap. I think he's an appropriate spot. He's a dynasty stash, but I wouldn't start him any game this season. But maybe we'll be wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong. Okay. I was going to talk about Jason Myers, but we're running long on time. He's the kicker 17. We love Jason, but kickers really just depend on how good their offense is. So that's a we will see. The one I do want to talk about is the Seahawks defense. They are the defense number 5, coming in behind the Texans, Steelers, Broncos, and Vikings, and ahead of the Ravens, Patriots, Lions, and Eagles. So I would say just looking at that seems appropriate. I think they have the upside to climb into that top 3, but they haven't shown it in the way those teams have. The fact that they're ranked above the Ravens and the Patriots and the Lions, who all had much better statistical defenses last season, I think just shows the faith in the system and this Mike McDonald juggernaut that he's been building. I say they end higher, but I think that's a good spot to rank them for now.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks defense is kind of a high floor, low ceiling pick. If I'm being real, like I don't think they're going to generate a lot of turnovers or anything like that. I think they're just going to get stops, make the other team punt, and that kind of thing. Like I don't think that, Witherspoon has proven to be a really, really solid guy in the secondary, but I don't think that anybody on this team is like the skill. Like Reek Willen's been good, but they're not the skill guy that's going to generate a ton of interceptions or anything like that. Like we're just going to hold teams to 14 to 21 points, 24 points, and that's going to be our recipe for success. If we hold them below 20, we'll probably win. If we don't, we'll probably lose. And I think with that comes just a solid defense that's going to get you, it depends on how you guys score, but like the average points per game every single week. Like I feel like that's what's going to happen for the Seahawks defense. And every once in a while they'll have a good week, but it's not going to be anything great. I would gladly take them. I think I wanted to take them in our draft as well, but somebody else took them earlier, and I was not surprised.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be huge turnover generators either, but they'll get a decent number of sacks, I think. And to your point, they're not going to win you many days, but hopefully they won't lose you any. So if you really like your team, they're a good one. If you're needing your defense to carry you a little more water, maybe go with somebody a little more high end. But yeah, I think that's an appropriate spot for them.
Yep.
That's it. That's all we have. Those are all the fantasy relevant Seahawks. Wasn't the most exciting discussion, but we are not expecting fireworks from their offense this season. I'll be excited to see where we were wrong and where we were far more likely correct.
Yeah, the Sound Up Seattle podcast is not for hot take click farming, so we're not here trying to create antagonizing opinions for no reason.
Incredibly level-headed in our analysis. I love.
Should I have said Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to be our wide receiver 2 and claimed that and gone for that angle?
That would have been hot. That would have been hot. Donald loves to throw deep.
Anyways, quick checkup on the Sounders. They have gone 0-1-1. They tied a game in the League's Cup and ended up winning it in penalty kicks. And then they lost to Minnesota in just a regular season game since we last talked. And I guess there really isn't much else to say. Anything to say about the Sounders there, John?
No, they won in the quarterfinals for the League Cup, so they will see the Galaxy in the semifinals. Hopefully that can be an equally thrilling drubbing as the 4-0 victory on August 10th.
Yes, and then the Storm have gone 2-2 since we last talked. Their 5-game losing streak went to 6 before beating the Dream and then losing to Phoenix and beating the Sky. A lot of close games in the WNBA recently. It's been just kind of a exciting stretch, but they're still 11 games back from first and 4 games back from that third place spot. They really dropped off between, it was kind of them and Phoenix and Las Vegas all vying for that kind of 2-3 spot, and they really fell out of the rankings there with that loss streak. So we'll see if they can climb back, but been a relatively okay stretch for the Storm.
Totally. Yeah, it's been okay. Hopefully they can turn it up. Just wanted to shout out Dominique. She's continued to play really well, breaking double figures in points and getting 7 or more rebounds in both of their victories over the last 4. So it's nice seeing, we were kind of talking about as they were giving her more run, they were starting to lose a lot of these close games, but nice to see some big statistical nights from her correlate with victories. So wanted to shout her out. I saw Wemby was also throwing her some love, so that's fantastic. We love our French players here in Seattle.
Love the French connection. All right, with all that, I think it's time to sign us out. So for John Carey, I'm Tyler Cartwright. This has been the Sound Up Seattle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode of Sound Up Seattle, please feel free to drop a like, follow, subscribe on YouTube, where we go on YouTube. I want to say we go live there whenever we do this, but we haven't yet. I'm setting it up. We're going to get that on there pretty soon. But yeah, check us out on YouTube as well. Subscribe there, comment, do whatever you need to do. You can find us also on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at SoundUpSeattle, all lowercase, all one word. You can email us questions, comments, concerns at soundupseattle@gmail.com. You can find me, Tyler, at TyCart50, everywhere it's important. And you can find John.
Just playing a lot of hacked Emerald ROMs on my phone. I'm getting pretty deep into the Pokemon universe, I gotta admit.
Have you done an Emerald Kaizo run yet?
Not Kaizo. I did complete my first Nuzlocke though, and that did make me feel pretty good.
How was it? What was your main Pokemon?
In this last one, I really got just mean Ninetales with just Confuse Ray and Toxic, and was just being a dick,
just spamming,
just playing bad ways. But it was a good time.
Love it. Well, this is my lone opportunity to plug my stream. I do stream Pokemon and other content like that on Twitch at TyCart50. So check me out there.
That's where his actual good content is.
Yeah, that's true. I do a lot of stuff there. But with all that being said, man, Nerds got to turn it around. Go Nerds, come on.
They need it. Blessings, Nerds. Blessings.